All right, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining again. I am joined by Matt Dobrovolsky, DarthVader 92. He this is his fourth time on the show. And I'm joined by Ryan Pagella from the Mutant Ages and Love is an Open Door. This is his third time on the show. And you can listen to my visits with Matt previously talking about working in the parks and a lot of time talking about Star Wars and kind of the future of Star Wars within the Disney universe now. Ryan joined me first when we talked about queer coding in Disney and within the X-Men universe, and we talked about the future of the MCU. Most recently, we talked about IP in the parks. So you can go back and you can find those episodes if you want to listen to those. The reason the three of us are here today is we are going to record probably the 200th episode about D23 recaps. I think everybody has done probably three or four recaps already. So we'll do our recap. We'll put a little bit of spin on it as well. So Matt, Ryan, welcome back to Being a Fan of Disney, the podcast. It's good to have you.
Thanks for
Good to be
having me
back.
back. Yeah.
So for people who have not listened before, and we'll go right to left from my screen. So Matt, you would go first. Give us a brief history of your fandom, where it started to where it is now.
God, my fandom started in 1995 when I was 3, as far as I can remember. Just having that love of Disney and then just always wanting to be a part of the Disney company. When I was 18, 2010, yeah, I'm doing math right. 2010, I went on my 18th birthday to my local Disney store at our mall to get a job and somehow got it right away. So a couple of weeks later, I started there, and that was my first job ever, was working with Disney. And then, of course, I knew the end goal was trying to come down here to Florida. So I knew trying to do the college program was going to be a very important thing in my career. And I did that, one of the best 4 months of my life. And just, obviously had to go back to New Jersey just for a little bit to finish up community college that I was in at the time, but then came down here to work at Disney and also be at University of Central Florida to finish up. University of Central Florida was like the greatest moment of my life, to understand the theme park industry even further and get to also work alongside my mentor, Ron Logan, who was the former executive vice president of Walt Disney Entertainment. And he's responsible for creating Phantasmic, SpectroMagic, Illuminations, Reflections of Earth, just to name a few right there. So that was really solidifying the Disney love in me even further. And then at that point, starting my career with the parks fully, working many attractions now, from Test Track to Spaceship Earth, Mission Space, Star Tours, Rise of the Resistance. I was opening team for Rise of the Resistance and all of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But finally heading back to my favorite park, which is Epcot, as of tomorrow, to start at Soarin'.
All right. Thank you. Ryan, give us your history.
Yeah, of course. So, oh God, we talked about this. I don't. Do we even talk about it the second time around? I feel like we just glazed over it, but
I
yeah.
think every time somebody's come on, it's been like, hey, give us the 30-second recap.
Okay.
And then I
All right.
ask like 5 questions off of it
Yeah.
that take 30 minutes. So
And then it turns into a 5-minute recap instead of 30 seconds.
I know, and it's always tough because like everybody else, I grew up with Disney, and it was just a big piece of my household. I didn't go to Disney World until I was an adult. We never went as kids, that's just not where my family went. We went to like the beach a lot. Um, but I grew up watching the movies and I loved the Disney Channel, and I loved going to the Disney store, and like I was kind of fascinated with like every major movie that came out during the Disney Renaissance, and then went back and saw other movies as well. So like I just was enamored by that. But I mean, the point being is that Disney is a household name, and it became like the 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 epitome of what a family film would be. So like pretty much everyone you knew had Disney movies. And I was really obsessed with it. I was like, I listened to all the music. I owned like all the soundtracks. Like that was my jam. Kind of fell out of it in my teens because I went through this phase that we talk about all the time on the Mutant Ages, where, and also Love is an Open Door, where we're like I went through this phase where I was like too cool for Disney, and I was like, I don't watch kids movies anymore. I watch only like Justice League and anime. But like that was very short lived because that was like 13, 16, and then like I had friends that were still into Disney movies, and so we'd watch them together, and then I just like fell right back in again. Then went to Disney World, and then it's just been kind of like downhill from there because like I got really obsessed with theme parks because I went to Disney. And like my whole fascination with going to theme parks is because I just want to like recreate that feeling I had the first time I went to Disney World. And now I go all the time. And it's just become a big part of my life and who I am and sort of my identity. Uh, Never expected Marvel and Disney to merge in the way that they did, because that was the thing I got into when I was like not doing the Disney thing in my teens. It's like I'm a Marvel boy now. I'm too cool for Disney. And now they're all under under the same umbrella. So and Star Wars, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I don't have to like get into anything else anymore. It's all at Disney World now. So that's kind of like my short version, and that like I am a media critic, so I like kind of will go down and break apart like how movies are made and how they're written. I'm very into script doctoring, so and that's kind of like the perspective I take. But like, really, my love for Disney comes from the movies and from going and being able to live them IRL at one of the parks. So that's my Disney background.
Yeah, thank you. And also, you both of you mentioned like kind of Disney being everywhere. Ryan, you mentioned now like Disney owning Marvel, owning Star Wars. Like it is so difficult to do anything without being exposed to Disney in some way. One thing I like to do with the students in the class is I challenge them to, when you leave this classroom for the rest of the day, don't do anything Disney related. Try not to consume any Disney content and tell me how long it takes. And it's usually about 4 or 5 minutes when they come back and they tell me how long it takes. It's usually 4 or 5 minutes that they do it because Disney is just everywhere. And so, as a lot of people know, D23 is the official fan club of the Walt Disney Company. And every 2 years, they have their D23 convention in Anaheim, which is right next, pretty close to Disneyland, the convention center. And then they'll have Destination D23 in Orlando in off years. And so there are these, it's a time, it's kind of like Comic-Con for Disney fans where people can meet and they could see the latest things that Disney is working on. They can visit different booths and everything on the convention floor. But then they also have massive announcements. And this was the first year that the announcement portions of the convention actually did not occur at the convention center. They actually occurred at the Honda Center, which in Anaheim is where the Anaheim Ducks play. And people have heard me previously talk about how the Walt Disney Company used to own the Anaheim Ducks. They were the Mighty Ducks at the time. They actually founded the Mighty Ducks 2 years after their hit Mighty Ducks movies. But the first thing that I want to ask it, and Matt was there, Ryan and I were following online during D23. Matt, the first thing I want to ask logistically, how was the move, just kind of from an attendee's perspective, how was it getting from the convention center to Honda Center? Because I mean that's about a 10 to 12 minute or 15-minute drive between those. Like, did they bus you? What did they do?
I took a car.
Okay.
And to be honest, I'm so glad I did because I heard look, they were running buses round trip, complimentary, which was great. But the bus ride to the conventions, to the Honda Center, I heard was fine. No issues. They were leaving pretty quickly. It was getting back.
Mm.
And you have to remember there were 12,000 people in the Honda Center. And not all of us drove. You know, a good chunk of us drove, maybe about 1,000 of us, I would say. The rest took the bus. I heard someone waited about an hour after the show ended one night to get the bus back to the convention center.
That sounds a lot like New York Comic Con. I don't know if you've ever been to that one, but it's like same situation. It's like you can get trapped there for hours.
Yeah.
That's time to call an Uber when you.
Right. And a lot of people were doing that on Saturday and Sunday too.
Yeah.
They started, I think after Friday, they were like, nope, I'll just Uber. And I mean, I don't know how successful that was, but I will tell you this, renting a car for that weekend was the best decision of my life, other than
seriously.
marrying my wife. But we literally got back to the car and we were out of that parking lot in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was perfect.
That's wonderful.
So the next thing I wanted to ask for everybody is just kind of the overall vibe. So we'll get into specifics about announcements and everything here in just a bit, but just kind of the overall feeling of either being there, Matt, Ryan, following along online, and kind of seeing people's reactions to things. Matt, you go ahead and start.
I will tell you this. First off, this was, in my opinion, the best D23 event I've been to. Usually most of these events are met with operational logistic chaos, in terms of people not going into the shows on time or whatever, and just overall confusion amongst the show floor. We had that a little bit on Friday morning, but after all of that, it was smooth sailing, and it felt like it was so much more organized. But with all these announcements that we got, with just the overall feel, the thing that I kept saying all weekend long was, I'm so glad I'm a fan of Disney, because this is the time to be a fan of Disney. With all these announcements with the studios, the parks, just the different segments of the company coming together.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. It was unlike any other D23 event I've been to.
Yeah. Ryan, how was it following along for you?
Well, I was just going to ask Matt, like, how many of the D23s have you been to? Because this was not your first one?
I've been to every one since 2013. I did not go to the first or the second one.
Okay, so you've got a good solid decade of knowing what it's like in comparison. Yeah. So okay, yeah, that's cool. I was curious because Cody, you don't know this, but I managed conventions for like 10 years, and that was like my entirety of my 20s. So hearing those logistical nightmares, I was like, yeah, I can see that, especially with that number of people. I mean,
and especially this year, it was even more because they got rid of Hall D, where all the Hall D presentations went to the Honda Center. So they said, oh, well, what can we do with Hall D? Well, let's go ahead and put more stuff for the show floor in there. So, they said this was the most attended one to date.
That's cool. That's awesome. In terms of vibe, I feel like only Matt can really give us the insight, because for me, it's just like seeing the announcements pop up in social media or reading a news article afterwards, and then sort of gauging how I personally feel as a reaction to it, and talking to my friends who are also following along. The big thing that I can tell you right now is that the most conversation I've really had about any of this so far is with my co-host Rachel, and seeing all these like attraction announcements, and she, living in Orlando and going there frequently, she wants to make sure that some of these things actually deliver instead of being announced, and we never hear about them again. So that is sort of where I'm like, is this actually happening? Because it's going to be awesome if it is. So but like I also have to come at it from the perspective of like I'm looking at two different groups. I'm looking at like the Disney people and how their reactions are, and also the Marvel people. So like we have a Discord for the Mutant Ages, and like seeing the live reaction of people who are excited for Agatha all along, for example. Like that was cool to see. And that sort of seeing the reaction to certain pieces of that announcement specifically was like it created a lot of excitement within our Discord. But I know it's kind of hard for me to gauge the vibe because like this is what I'm always doing when I'm trying to look at like announcements or things, and I'm like how was it in the audience, like without having to watch a react video.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I think we can dive more into that conversation as we continue to talk about it.
Okay. Matt, since you were there, tell us a little bit about what the convention floor was like. They had several great setups, like walk-through attractions and everything. I saw some really, really cool ones. Uh, Tell us what that convention floor was like.
It was basically every segment imaginable to Disney, and a lot of third parties were there just showing off everything that they've got. We had literally a pavilion just dedicated to Avatar alone, where it was just like this little walkthrough kind of thing. It kind of really didn't impress me a lot because we've got Pandora over in Animal Kingdom just up the street from here.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
it was still kind of
Were you
cool
the one
because
that was in there? Were you the one in there? Like, if people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is so neat," you're like,
yeah,
let's
we got
see it,
something
come
better.
on. Let's
But
temper
it was
it."
kind of cool because we had like this inside the pavilion. There was like this like life size, if you will, static banshee. So it's like,
Okay.
okay, this is kind of cool to be up close to this. They also had a nice little dedication plaque in there for John Landau, who just passed away from cancer. So that was kind of wonderful to that. My wife got to do, they had this massive pavilion for Marvel, and it was a walkthrough of the TVA. I'd never got a chance to do it because the line was
What?
just so incredibly long.
See, I didn't even hear about that. Like that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that doesn't translate into social media because like it's just not going to get that announcement. Sorry, I
And
forgot to
those
No,
watch a video of that because
Yeah.
that was awesome.
there was
looking.
an interaction with Rocket, the raccoon,
Yeah.
in there. I don't know how they were doing. I'm guessing it was kind of like a turtle talk with Crush kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it was really well
Huh.
done what she said in there. It was, I saw some of the videos, really
Right.
top notch in there. And it was just a simple walkthrough that
Yeah.
they did for 3 days. So they really put a lot of time and effort into this to make it that memorable thing for 3 days.
Right.
You know what's so interesting about like what I saw the videos of and what like you're talking about now, these walkthroughs, like a lot of, I mean, remember like Pirates of the Caribbean was going to have like a walkthrough portion of it. The Haunted Mansion originally was going to be like completely walkthrough until they started like kind of getting into, there was the House of the Weird and then the Haunted Mansion. And like, so in a way, it kind of like throws back to like, kind of what these parks started out as, what the company started out doing. And also, I also have to think it probably is it kind of gives the company feelers for reactions. Much like, they had Captain America or Rogers the Musical last year in California Adventure. A long time ago, they had Lion King at California Adventure, and that actually developed into a full Broadway musical. Like, so they're doing these things to try to see how people react to them. How cool would it be? And I could definitely see it to have like a temporary setup or something more permanent of like the TVA in California Adventure when you go into Avengers Campus, because they're expanding that. So I would think like, those are kind of ways for the company to get some feelers out
Oh yeah.
as well for that stuff.
Well, the problem with something like that, though, sorry, I am a marketing person full time, so like I have to look at that from that perspective and be like, well, yeah, the TVA was like, it's cool to put that in there now because like that dropped what in was it this year? It was this year that Loki season 2 came out, right? It's so weird. Time just
Oh yeah,
it's
that's
like
right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like it doesn't feel like it was this year, but it was. And like so, yeah, they have all this buzz around that and the other properties they had come out this year. So it was like that and Echo and now Wolverine Deadpool, which is taking over everything. Um, but like it would be cool to see in the parks, but would that sustain? Because I feel like
Yeah.
in 3 years from now, nobody's gonna remember what the TVA was. It's like just not a big enough part of the Avengers for that to work. And I feel like when they get away from the multiverse, we're not gonna hear about the TVA
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel about that. In
What I
terms of
love so much with Avengers Campus that they do so well is that when something new premieres, like the first season of Loki, I remember every single episode that they had of a new Loki, they put that Loki character the next day into Avengers
I know
Campus.
that's crazy,
and they're
That
still
is
doing that.
crazy.
They had Deadpool and Wolverine there,
Yeah.
literally the day the movie
That blew my
premiered.
mind. I'm like
I still
Wolverine
can't
in a
believe that
Disney
I saw
park. Like
Deadpool
I
and
cannot.
Wolverine.
Yeah, right. But like I feel like Disney's funneling all their energy into that because they can't do it in Disney World right now until
Yeah.
they figure out contractually what they want to do with Universal.
Right.
So, but yeah,
I think that, I think Ryan, you could be right about the TVA as far as it kind of going away after this multiverse era that we're in. I think let's talk about some of the two of the three big events at the Honda Center. On Friday night, they had the entertainment or the studio announcements. And so again, Ryan and I could follow along um, on social media. Matt was able to attend. Some of the announcements that were made, I'll just run through them real quick, and then Matt, you kind of tell us the things that are not on this list. They announced Moana 2. They did have a trailer for that. They announced Frozen 3, concept for Incredibles 3, Toy Story 5, Win or Lose, which I'm really looking forward to, and actually did see a trailer of that about the like the softball team that it kind of comes from the perspective of different players on the team. That looks kind of interesting. Leo, the new Pixar release, Hoppers from Pixar in spring 2026, a new Avatar movie. The Mandalorian Grogu movie was more was told about that, or concept art was shown. Zootopia
We
2
actually
is
saw
coming.
some footage on that too.
Oh, you did? Okay. Daredevil Born Again. They actually had I saw they had the cast come out on stage for that and talk about that. Agatha All Along, we got a new trailer with that. That's coming out September 18th, so it's coming out a little over a month from now as we record. Freakier Friday, a new Tron movie. Mufasa, the Lion King, which comes out December 20th of this year. The live action Lilo and Stitch, and the live action Snow White. And there are probably another 7 or 8 that are not on this list that were announced. Matt, what were some of those that were announced that I didn't name?
Well, Star Wars wise, we got to see the first trailer for Skeleton Crew, which comes out on December 3rd. We got to see a little bit of a peek into season 2 of Andor, where we're going to see Ben Mendelsohn's character come back from Rogue One, director Krennic. They also did that whole Disney on Broadway sequence that was actually really cool because they were showing off that Greatest Showman is now in develop for Broadway. Mm-hmm. They also announced for Disney Plus next year, hot off the heels of Inside Out 2 being so successful, Dream Productions, where it's going to be all these different episodes of different dream sequences that Riley is going through in her head. And I think that's just genius, in my opinion. Other than that, we also got stuff on Ironheart that's finally coming out to Disney Plus, and Ryan Coogler is coming back for that. We saw the same trailer for Fantastic Four that Comic-Con people got to see. So we saw Galactus at the end, and I squealed a little bit. Wait.
What? You got to see Galactus? I didn't even. That's the first time I'm catching wind of that.
So there's some people that kind of got like video of it. They were like, and
yeah. Well, like,
I
that's
still
like half
can't
the
believe
YouTube
they got
videos. Yeah.
But Fantastic Four looks amazing. It's
So
like
I'm
this
curious
like
about
50s,
that. So
60s vibe.
I was gonna say, so was this a trailer you saw, or was it like just
Yeah.
concept art?
No, it was actual footage.
Okay, that's cool because I
Yeah.
was curious if how they're gonna manage it because I know they're doing it as like a period piece, which I have
Right.
so many questions about with Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards, and are they
Well,
gonna
what I love too with it is that it's not going to be an origin story. It's already going to be boom, they've got their powers. Let's do the
Yeah,
story.
that's I mean that's what
love
they
that.
did with Spider-Man and that worked too.
Right.
And so like there's a couple things I have to say about that. So one, I'm very curious if they're gonna address that time period and like marginalization for his character because that's a very different take on Reed Richards, who primarily was a white character in the original show, right? Or in the comic books, and so now it's not. I'm very curious what they're gonna do with that. And then the other thing I was gonna say is how is that gonna play into the greater Marvel universe? Do you think they're gonna time travel forward at the end of the movie? Like, do you know, just question mark?
Well, so I have this theory.
Okay.
We all know that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Doctor Doom.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that would make logical sense with the greater picture of this is that Doctor Doom is a Tony Stark variant from another multiverse. And this is my theory. You know, if Marvel's actually listening and wants to take this, go for it. Tony was the anchor of Earth 616, like we see in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And Earth 616 is now collapsing just like we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine because Logan had died. So the Avengers team up to try and go find another Tony in another universe to bring back to help, kind of a la Deadpool and Wolverine. But instead, they bring back this Tony that they think, oh yeah, he's great, he works, but it's actually Doctor Doom.
I see. I like that. See, my theory is that they're
and I'm sure the Russo brothers could make a lot more sense.
So Matt,
they're so good at that.
I read that online also. I'm going back through. Did you write that? Did I read what you were posting? Like I'm
no,
wondering if I read your post. Oh,
I
okay.
retweeted it from somewhere. Yeah.
So
I saw
you are
like,
you are the person
I
hold it.
Yeah.
So I guess my theory is that like since it's in the past and if they end up playing with time travels, they end up screwing up the modern timeline. So like Tony Stark's just evil. You know, like it's like that whole concept of like, you know, the Simpsons, like, oh, we can't screw anything up by going back and killing one dinosaur, but then it changes like the entire outcome of the future. So like,
that's a good episode.
Yeah, it's a great reference point for when I try and explain time travel. Like people just they're standing there, their heads spinning when I try and explain time travel stories. But then if I reference Simpsons for some reason, that makes it make sense. So, did you? One more question on that. Did you get to see any footage of Kirby? Is he in there? Like I know that he's in the promo art, the robot.
Not really. I think I'm trying to think back to the footage. I think it was just like a brief showing of. Yeah, it was just very, very brief because I remember Comic-Con, like they brought out the car and everything and showed like that it was hovering. I was like, oh, this is awesome. They didn't do that.
Wait, it was hovering like at Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Okay. We live in the future.
I don't know how
everyone.
they're doing it, but they're doing it.
Like Disney magic right there, right?
Yeah, and there's like a big pole or something in the back that just.
I was gonna say, like, if there's anybody that would know how that mechanic would work, it would probably be you, right? Because you work on Disney rides, so like you would see the behind the scenes of that kind of thing.
Oh, but you know, and not to get sidetracked or anything, but there are so many attractions that I've gone on to, especially out in Tokyo now, that I can look at some of those effects and I can say, how did they do that? You know what? I don't want to know because it's that good.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's how I feel about the Beauty and the Beast ride. So
yeah.
Anyway, sorry to derail, but I was just like, you brought a Fantastic Four. I was like, oh, I didn't know they had all that because
Yeah, because
I
wasn't
wasn't
cast
there.
didn't even come out for it, so it was just like, here's the footage, and we also got to hear a little bit of Michael Giacchino's score for it as well.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm
So
Because I
excited.
trust
what?
that man with my life.
So what? Like what kind of stood out to? Let's go around and say two or three things that stood out to each of us from that entertainment presentation. Who wants to start? Matt, we always start with you. Ryan, do you want to
Yeah,
start?
let Ryan go.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll go. So we're talking about like the movies and TV shows. Is that what we're doing?
The movies, TV shows,
Any
as Matt
media?
said, yeah, there was the Broadway in there as well. Like anything from that presentation that kind of stood
Right.
out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess for me, like the big thing is that like uh, I as I was watching these announcements dropped, I was like, there sure are a lot of sequels and remakes happening, which is like less of a Disney problem so much as an overall like media problem that's been
Mhm.
going on for like 15 years. This is not to say that I'm not going to see these movies and I won't enjoy them and they won't be good because like I'm sure Frozen 3 and Moana 2 are going to be absolutely amazing. So I'm not even going to like question something like that. I'm a little weirded out when I saw like the Mufasa trailer, and I was like, it's really weird to be watching a prequel to a remake of a movie. Like we're
Yeah.
getting right, and like, and I think this is a problem that Disney sort of faces with their ongoing properties. Is that obviously the live action Lion King live action is like in its own universe, separate from the original one that released. Um, so I'm not expecting things to be the same, but like they have this problem with Star Wars too, where it's like what is canon, what isn't canon, what like, and it makes it
Hmm.
confusing because for a long time our only origin story on Scar was through like this book that came out, like this novelization in the 90s that talked about like the history of the Lion King kingdom, and I was like, and it's really good. It's a great little story for like teeny boppers to read. But if you're like a diehard Disney fan, you're like, oh, I want to know more. Uh, and then they did the Lion Guard that kind of rewrote that, and here we are rewriting it again. And I was like, what is going on? Can we not decide like what the origin story is here? Like, you know, um, but that was something that I responded to is that just I was like, there's a lot of sequels here, and like, I'm not mad about it or anything like that, but I definitely am like, all right, like, what's going on? I am very excited about Incredibles 3 because I think that's going to be a nice trilogy. And I love The Incredibles. I really liked Incredibles 2. I was really, 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 really shocked, but also being like, okay, this is where our generation is completely taken over Disney when they announced the new Tron movie. And they're like, this is going to be composed by Nine Inch Nails. And I was like, wow, like Nine Inch Nails doing a Disney movie. We have truly made a made a leap. Like, like Matt, you don't know me very well, but I'm very much like I was a goth punk kid, and still really, I very much am one now, just like happier. But that was like crazy, and I think it's gonna work really well for that movie. Because the last time we had Daft Punk, which was also like a situation, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Um, so like that is something that I was like really like that was creating a lot of buzz in a lot of the channels that I was in because I have like a lot of people following that stuff. But I think like the biggest thing that I took away from that was like people were just like in the Mutant Ages Discord, like it was all about Daredevil and Agatha all along. Uh, and everything that we saw, I'm really, really, really excited about Agatha because they don't like of all the presentations I watched, I'm like, this is the one that's just truly like it's not coming from anywhere. And this is
Hmm.
this is me again saying like there's a lot of sequels, there's a lot of remakes, or like offshoots of a movie like you're talking about, whether like Inside Out, where I'm like, well, that's still part of that. And like Agatha All Along is technically part of the general Marvel universe, but what this story is coming from, it's coming from like nowhere. Like there's like no source material on this. All these characters they're adding are like made up for the show. It's just them like off in their own little corner creating something, and I just found that really fascinating, and it just looked really cool. Like and it very exciting for me to see something, especially from the world of Marvel, which is kind of like there's just so much of it now that kind of looks like other Marvel movies. To just see something to be like this just looks wild and new, and I think that really hit like a point for a lot of the people that listen to my show and like talk about the movies in the community. And like they did this whole thing with the Fantastic Four. They did a really good job keeping that one under wraps because that has not leaked into like any of the channels that I'm on so far. So that's just kind of like
I was gonna
wild
say,
to
go
me.
on Twitter, you can find it.
Well, so I may work in marketing now, but like I really have had to take like a step back from Twitter as like a concept because it's become such a negative space that I'm like, I'm good. Like I don't need to listen to people about this. And when Deadpool came out, this new movie, it's like I was trying to do marketing for like our podcast, and like the second I sent it, people were spoiling it. I was like, and I go to my co-host, I'm like, we can't post social media for like I can't check on it until I see the movie. Like
Yeah.
like
That
I
was
hate
already
so
my
much.
mistake with Deadpool. I didn't get a chance to see it that Thursday night. I
Oh
had to
my
wait
God,
until
I
Friday
know.
night.
Right.
And they came out at Comic-Con with all the cameos, and I'm like, oh gee, thanks, Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Not everyone can
thanks.
see it Thursday night. Thanks for
I
telling me
know.
Chris Evans was in it.
That was crazy. I mean, I felt like Chris Evans was like the most like if we had to like make guesses about what was going to happen, like yeah, Chris is something they could bring back. He was in both universes. I can see that. It was really Blade that like caught me like off guard. I was like, Wesley Snipes.
Oh yeah,
is in this
especially
movie?
since Wesley Snipes said he would never do it ever
I
again.
know. I was like, what's going on? Anyway, this is derailing. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. I'm a nerd. But
No.
that was sort of my takeaway on
We're
that
all
stuff.
nerds.
So.
That's why we're doing this.
worries.
Yeah.
There were two things that I have a like question about, because one of the things that really stood out to me that I was really, really excited about also was Agatha all along.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting to me about that is, I mean, what you said, like this basically was like, yes, there's an Agatha in the comics, but this concept came out of the popularity of WandaVision. And it's not like, I mean, they were planning it because they announced it right when WandaVision either was finishing or was just over. So it's not like they saw the whole reaction to WandaVision and were like, oh, we're just gonna announce this uh, right now. Like we just made it up off the top of our heads. They probably had it like, in the can that they were thinking about it for a while. But the way that they marketed that, where it was first like, what was it? House of Harkness, then Coven of Chaos. I mean, it changed names 4 or 5 times to then like it being literally the title of the song Agatha all along. Um, but so that's really, really interesting to me because it was the first Disney Plus show, and that has been the show that has been the most popular of all the Disney Plus shows. Um, Up there with that one and Loki, season 1 and season 2, I think
You're
are kind
talking
of,
specifically just Marvel, right?
yeah, Marvel.
Okay. Because I was going to
Um,
say Mandalorian would probably knock you
yeah,
out there a
yeah.
little bit.
I think it's real interesting, like they are, and it's a bold step that they're making this step from WandaVision to doing that, which is really, really cool. Which kind of ties into my second comment. Ryan, you said, there's a lot of sequels, which I agree with. I'm excited for at least most of them. But you also said that's kind of a larger entertainment issue. It's not
Yeah.
just Disney. Everybody's doing it. Here's my question for both of you. Do you think there are so many sequels now for in Disney, outside of Disney? Is it because of just kind of what social media has done to all of us, this instant gratification, that we want to see this? If we see something we like, we want to see more of that. And like things get into our algorithms and they like we see more of that. Do you think that has anything to do with like the appetite for all these sequels that
Well,
people are making?
It's called
here's the
nostalgia.
yeah. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's from a complete marketing perspective, right? It is like there's two things going on here. One, there's contracts, and like how long can they go with owning IP before they have to like restart his contract? And that's kind of half the reason why we're getting so many live action remakes and stuff like that is because they have to like renew or like bring it back around to keep the IP going. But the other piece here is that they take something that has been successful, and like Matt said, it's nostalgic. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring this back, and like people will buy that, and especially our generation, which is kind of the first one to really, really tap into that and be like, I want to get like action figures of every TV show that I ever was into as a child because I have like an attachment to that, right? Like we weren't selling toys like we are now 40 years ago. Like you know what I mean? Like 40, 50 years ago, like toys weren't being marketed. Like they were making TV shows and marketing toys to go alongside them. Now it's like everything. It's like everything. And so what Disney and other marketing crew is doing is that they're looking at like what is being purchased the most, like what, like, and also looking on, you know, Disney Plus to be like what's being streamed the most. So a great example of this is Toy Story 5, which is dead. We need to move on from that. We need to do something else. I love Toy Story so much. It has such a special place in my heart. It needed to end with 3. It was the perfect ending. 4 kind of undoes all the emotional you know, like stakes that were put in 3. And so now I'm looking at 5. I'm like, I like, how am I getting on board with this?
Now
but they
it
also
looks like
don't,
Woody's already coming back.
which is crazy.
Toy Story 4.
I'm like, this is taken away from like the emotional depth that was the ending of Toy Story 3 that wrapped up that trilogy, and now you're just creating more stories that don't need to be there. And you know, they just opened up like Toy Story Land in like Hollywood Studios. So that is still, I say just, but it's like it's one of the newer additions to that park, and obviously Pixar Pier is another one. So they're like, no, we got to keep on funneling more Toy Story into people's like these kids, they're gonna watch Toy Story, and they're obviously watching Toy Story on Disney Plus because that's what their parents are putting on for them. You know, like my older sister did with her kids. So like it can reach multiple generations without like kicking anybody out. Really, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have a lot of like characters that like kids wouldn't know who they are because they were like only 80s toys or something like that.
It's also the idea of how capitalism works in our society.
Yeah.
If
right.
you
Exactly.
keep buying
100%.
we will still keep making it. So until Toy Story 5 bombs at the box office and makes like $200
but it's not going
million,
to. It's not going to bomb. You know,
no,
like.
But here's the
Toy
thing.
Story 4 was awful in my opinion, yet it still made over $1 billion.
Well, that's how I felt about it. I mean, I watched it and I was like, this is enjoyable. It's fun.
Nobody talks about Toy Story 4 anymore.
No.
You don't hear
nobody
people
talked about it when it came out.
Yeah, that too.
I
still know people that haven't seen it.
Here's the thing. The thing I think is so important. It's not just if Toy Story 17 does poorly at the box office. It's if Toy Story 17 does poorly at the box office and nobody is buying the toys anymore. Yeah. Because you think about the reason there are so many Toy Story movies and Cars movies, and they're putting Cars into, you know, they have a new plan for the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, is it's in the name. The movie Toy Story is about toys, which is
a story about
great
toys.
Marketing, which is so incredible. The history of that movie is so incredible that like Disney did not have the foresight to think like this is going to be a huge movie. So they actually like
they didn't have the foresight that Pixar was going to be so big for them. You know, they did not know that at the time.
They didn't have toys ready when the movie came out. You know, but and then same thing with Cars. I mean, those are not Matchbox, Hot Wheels. You know, like that's because of Disney had a relationship with Hot Wheels. Now because of that movie, that relationship's just going to keep going. So especially those 2 movies, it doesn't matter when, you know, like Cars 79 comes out. If
Cars 79,
if it is still selling the cars, you know, like that's what they're going.
We're going to
for.
be on our deathbeds and we're going to be watching Cars 79. Like, I remember when it was Cars 2 and that was awful.
I mean, like that's like people that are like in their 80s or 90s being like, I remember when I saw the original Mickey Mouse. You know, like I mean that is already happening. You know.
Yeah.
But Toy Story, it seems more silly to us.
And now our grandparents are saying, oh, I remember when it was Mickey Mouse Club and now it's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I don't understand what these kids are watching nowadays.
So, Matt, so we can get to the bulk of the conversation. Was there like an announcement or 2 from entertainment that you particularly were interested in?
I think the one that I will say like caught me off guard was Incredibles 3. Especially the way Pete Docter came out and introduced it. If you head on over to my YouTube channel, I posted like a B-roll that they gave media for the studio's presentation, and it's just, you think Pete Docter was done talking about Pixar, and he's like, we have some really incredible things coming, and then the screen just cuts to his anger emotion in his head, trying to say, did he just say incredible? And then they start playing the iconic theme.
Yeah.
It just caught all of us off guard. And, look, we saw nothing other than Brad Bird is coming back, which terrific. I was very shocked that they got Brad Bird to come back for that. I think every single announcement that they came out with, everyone was super excited for. Like, you could see the energy there. I would say personally for me, the only thing I wasn't really, I'm intrigued to see it, but I'm also very cautiously optimistic about it, is the live action remake of Snow White. And Snow White was and is always will be a classic that you just do not touch. It's like The Wizard of Oz. It's like Singing in the Rain. You don't touch those things because of how iconic the originals are. And to me, they have the songwriting duo Pascal and Paul coming in to write new songs for Snow White. We got to see the full Whistle While You Work sequence. And I don't know, to me, them turning this into like an upbeat pop kind of thing doesn't work in my book. I will say Rachel Zegler looks amazing as Snow White. Gal Gadot looks amazing as the Evil Queen.
Oh.
I'm intrigued, but I'm cautiously optimistic about that.
Okay. So the next one on Saturday night, they had their big presentation was Parks Division, Parks and Entertainment. And so what I am going to do, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. I'm just going to run through some things, and then we'll talk about them kind of like we did with the movies. So everybody knows, recording note, we kind of talked about, hey, we'll talk about each one of these at a time. Just for time's sake, I'll just kind of name off a few, and then we'll talk about those. So some of the announcements that were made, there's 4 new ships are being added to the Disney Cruise Line. There was more information about the Avatar land for Disney California Adventure. One that is pretty cool. I've also seen some negative reactions. I've seen negative reactions from Walt Disney's granddaughter about this. Walt Disney audio animatronic is coming to Disneyland. It's going to be in combination with Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. They're going to kind of switch on and off between the two. New Avengers experiences coming around the world at different parks. The King Thanos ride coming to Disney California Adventure. There's also the Stark Flight ride coming to California Adventure. There's a new Lion King ride at Disneyland Paris. Coco is coming to California Adventure. And Matt, I think maybe I saw you say this. I would expect after a few years that Coco to be retrofitted, that ride to be retrofitted and brought over possibly to Epcot, maybe the Mexico Pavilion, depending what they want to do with that, or somewhere in the parks.
I could see it maybe going to like Magic Kingdom somewhere. It's just, I know they've talked about Coco trying to go into Mexico Pavilion at Epcot. The problem is that they already don't have enough queue over there for it. Like, if you wanted to put Coco in there, you would have to literally gut the inside of that pavilion and have that just be queue. So getting rid of La Cava del Tequila, you get rid of the San Angel Inn in there, and all those little shops that are inside the pavilion.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that. I haven't heard anybody talk about that. That's a very, very good point. Yeah, where would that
because they've been talking about that. I remember since the movie came out, they were like, oh, what if they switch Grand Fiesta Tour over to Coco? It just, it's not going to work. They would have to do it as like this new thing. And that was originally one of the rumblings for beyond Big Thunder Mountain was going to be
Mhm,
Coco.
yeah.
So when they switched it to cars, that's what kind of threw a little curveball at a lot of us.
So of that first group that I named, um, let's talk a little bit about what are your impressions of the Walt Disney audio animatronic playing and switching out with great moments with Mr. Lincoln. Ryan,
I'm
you
all
go ahead,
for it.
go first. Oh, sorry.
You're telling me I'm sitting here. I'm trying to figure out like where in this list were you looking at this stuff right now?
So it's at the top where it says Magic Around the World. It's at the top.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You guys can spin on this a little bit longer because like I don't have that much opinion of it other than I remember seeing like the Lion King stuff and thinking that was super cool.
Okay.
But that was real, right? Like I saw a Lion King flume ride. I don't think that's even on this lot. Like
Yeah.
that's gonna be their Splash Mountain, and I was like telling my
Kinda,
friend.
yeah.
Fun fact: I have a friend who's like terrified of Splash Mountain. I don't know why. She's like I don't like drops, and I'm like, she's like she went on when she was a kid. She's like I almost fell out. I'm like, well, you're like not 10 pounds anymore, so like I'm sure you're not gonna fall out of the
And
ride.
that was probably also before they put the lap restraints into the log. So
yes,
I think she's
I'm
good
like-
now.
I know, right? I'm like, I keep on telling her, I'm like, rides were not safe in the 80s. They're safe now. Like,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like, and she's obsessed with the Lion King, and like, there's never been a proper Lion King ride for her to go on, and I'm like, so I messaged
Just
her, I'm
remember
like,
that is going to Paris.
well,
It's not
I
coming
guess
here
we're
to
going to
States.
Paris because she messaged. I'm messaging like Rachel, and she's like, why do all the other parks get like really cool stuff? And I was like, it's because they want us to travel, Rachel. But yeah, I saw that, and I was like, we're gonna have to go on that. And now she's mad at me because she knows I'm right. We're gonna have to go on that if that's real. But my thing is that like they announced a bunch of like cruise ship stuff, and I'm like, there's been so many cruise announcements from Disney in the last year alone that I cannot keep track of which cruise line has which attraction I want to see. Like, does anybody else have this issue?
Do you want to know why?
Because they want us to go on all the cruise lines.
Because the cruise industry for Disney is being so freaking successful. It's incredible.
I know.
Like
I watched all the YouTube videos. It's wild.
I had an inkling at this presentation saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to come out and probably say we're building another ship. That will be great." Basically solidifying that we're going to have a new ship every decade.
What is happening right
every
now?
year until the end of the decade? Like
that's wild.
Because
right?
they keep selling out of these cruises, which is unbelievable.
I see. My older sister is one of those people. She goes on multiple. She does the Disney cruise. She does like Royal Caribbean. Like her family go on like 3 or 4 cruises a year. The cruise like industry has exploded in the past 10 years, which is hilarious because COVID happened in the middle of all this and there were no cruises happening. So now it's like,
and then I think COVID just like
absolutely
that
because
industry up.
Yeah, and it's not just cruise lines. It's like the whole travel industry cannot keep pace right now. Like tourism, they cannot. Like it is. They made $0 for like 2 years there, and now they're making more money than they've ever made, and they cannot control like the amount of people coming in. So
Well, look at. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
No. It's you. I'm done with that statement.
I mean, you talk about the travel industry and where it is. The Paris Olympic Games just finished, and you look at the attendance there. Usually during Olympic Games, and this is something that like I cover in some of my sport and entertainment classes. You look at Olympic Games, and usually they have trouble selling seats. They have trouble getting people into those venues. And that ultimately, from a marketing perspective, impacts everything. It impacts whether people want to watch on television. Because do you want to watch something where everybody's just sitting down and you see empty seats everywhere? Do you want to watch somewhere where, like this year during the gymnastics competition, where it was like every 50th seat, there was a celebrity in the crowd that they could show and people were up and they were cheering. And like, Paris being a travel destination in itself, and the fact that people could not go to the Tokyo Games in 2021, it made such a huge difference for attendance this year. And like, I just looked this up for something else that I'm working on. The streaming was up it was up over 40% for the Olympics than it was from even the Beijing games, the 2022 Beijing Winter Games. Um, and so it's that you're talking about the travel industry and how they just can't keep up now. Like, yes, there's all this pent up urge to get out and to experience things because people have missed out on things so much. Matt, what
Because I
was one
think the
thing that
next
stood out to
lockdown's going to happen in like a couple of months or something.
what's one thing that stood out to you from those first 5 or 6 announcements that I said?
Um, I think the animatronic for Walt. I heard the rumbling about that,
Yeah,
and
I really want to hear your opinion on this because I didn't see, like, we didn't see any of that in
yeah,
person. So
I want to see what it looks like because Imagineering was at the pavilion on the show floor touting this thing, saying this is going to be the most lifelike animatronic we've ever created. I'm like, okay, you're setting the bar high. Let's see. Um, Me and my wife were starting to gasp because we thought they were getting rid of Lincoln for this. And then it was like halfway through the announcement, Josh says, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're making this in rotation with Lincoln," and we're like, "Oh, thank God." Okay. Um, I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what they do with this, how they do it, because you have to do it tastefully.
Mhm.
You can't mess this up. It has to be. It has to make us gasp and give us emotion to it. Um, I'm hearing a little bit of things because of how they announced it at the expo. Right after they made the announcement, they played "Feed the Birds." And I said, good Lord, if I'm going to hear the piano playing Feed the Birds in Walt's office with this, you're not going to be able to control the tears in my eyes.
Oh my God, you're gonna
lose them.
you're gonna like not be okay.
Yeah.
You have to deal with that every day.
You're going to have to wheel me out of there in a wheelchair just sobbing because I can't move. As for the Avatar stuff, look, I am so on board with the Avatar stuff. Do not get me wrong. I am losing it with people online right now who are trying to claim, who have the audacity to claim, oh, they're going to take out Grizzly Peak area of California Adventure. I'm like, what drugs are you on? Because if so, let me get in on some of that so I can get on your level of this. There's no way this thing could fit in there. And you're going to tell me you're going to take out Grizzly River Run and Soarin' for this? And put this right in front of the Grand Californian somehow? Like, what? It's going on to the other side of property that they were just able to claim because of Disneyland Forward. And I truthfully also think that's where Coco's trying to go too, because now I'm seeing people on Twitter and everything trying to claim, oh, Coco's going to go right next to Toy Story Mania on Pixar Pier. And I said, in what space? There's nothing back there for a boat ride.
No.
It's going over there. This was all announced now because of Disneyland Forward. Because now Disneyland can go around with all their property and say, we want to do this, 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 and this, instead of, well, the Toy Story lot is designated as a parking lot. Yeah, but we want to put a hotel there or something. Oh, well, you can't do that. That has to be a parking lot. Now they don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Now they can go in and do this kind of stuff. Because I still see people also still trying to claim Avatar is going to go into the Hollywood land as well. And I said, okay, that could work. But here's the thing. You've got to also create that new parking structure on the other side of Harbor Boulevard and reroute the transportation and everything, all the Anaheim Resort Transit shuttles that are basically behind Hollywood Land right there to that parking structure area. And you can't touch that area until you've done that. And that's a bare minimum of 3 years away, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, the announcement of Disneyland Forward was to add more space, to add more capacity to parks. So yeah, you're not going to it makes more sense to put things in the space you just got rather than trying to take something out.
Right.
That, like people love Soarin'. People love we didn't ride it when we were there, the Rapids run, because I prefer not riding rides where I'm gonna get soaked and have to walk around the rest of the day like that.
Depends on how hot the day is. Sometimes you're okay with that because you're gonna dry right
Well,
off within
You'll
5
dry off in
minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Florida, like you're wet already, it doesn't matter. Like you're just kind of in this constant state of being drenched. But
Yeah.
when we got around to Soarin', it was already nighttime. Like we were riding Soarin' and then going over to watch the nighttime show. So like I didn't even tell the boys that there was a water ride there. So I'm like, we're not gonna deal with that. But the things that really got me were the additions to Avengers Campus, because we got to go to Disneyland for the first time this
Finally.
last summer, and Avengers Campus is amazing. And yes, it's small, but the cool thing about it, the Spider-Man attraction is awesome. I like Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is awesome,
But it's not enough.
it's not enough. And people did that. Like when we went, I knew, okay, the Avengers headquarters, that's supposed to be the entrance to the e-ticket attraction. So like I was expecting that. But one thing that I really like about Avengers Campus is that the characters are walking around and you just have these, it's not planned. It's you just like when we were there, we had Ant-Man and the Wasp like walk past us, and we saw I guess the like the big show last summer would have been Black Panther and Black Widow. They were fighting Taskmaster. That's kind of the pop-up show that we saw. So I'm really excited about that, because until if Disney can ever get Avengers and Marvel characters properly into the Walt Disney World parks, that's the next closest part to be able to see and experience all that is California Adventure. So I was really, really excited for all of that.
What I've always said about Avengers Campus is that that's what Galaxy's Edge should have been. Having the characters, just more of the characters walking around, because I mean we do have Rey and Chewie, which is great, but there needed to be more. And it would have been like a salute to Star Wars, because this is what Avengers Campus is. It's a salute to Marvel. You can see Loki walking around with Thor, and it's okay.
And what's so cool is that, yes, and we've talked about this before, Matt, the Galaxy's Edge exists on the timeline of Star Wars. Avengers Campus exists kind of in this multiversal approach to the comics, where you can have Black Widow show up, even though Black Widow is now not alive in the 616 universe. Like you can have all of these characters interact, and it doesn't have to make sense according to the
They
timelines.
literally have like Doctor Strange creating portals around there and be like, this character just popped out of this unit. Like that's like literally part of one of the things they do over there. Like they can just have whoever they want.
Well, and Avengers Campus is also, that's similar to what Disneyland was when it first opened, where characters just roam around. And now, because of crowds, you have to, their characters roam around more at Disneyland than they do at Walt Disney World. But like you still have to have meet and greets and things like that. So it's such a cool place. Now, the announcements for Florida, to run through some of those. They announced the Monsters Inc. land for Disney's Hollywood Studios. That sounds pretty cool.
Ooh, I can't wait to dive into that one with Matt. I have so many questions. Where is that going? What is it replacing? Is it replacing anything?
a new Cars land going in, and we know where that's going now.
That's another
Rivers
one.
of America.
That one's kind of sad. Sorry, I'm just like
a Villains Land going to Magic Kingdom. I'm really, really excited for this. I love Dino Land. I love the dinosaur ride, but the fact that that's now going to become like the Tropical Americas and Encanto and Indiana Jones are going to be in there.
We talked about this on the IP episode. You brought this up. You were like,
Yes.
"Is Indiana Jones gonna go here?" That was a thing you asked me at that time, and I was
And-
like, "I don't know."
And
Now
it's
we know.
supposed to be it's supposed to be a new story. It's not just a
Right.
reprint of what's in California, which what's in California is amazing.
Or Tokyo, for
But-
that matter. They even said it won't be like Tokyo's either.
Yeah.
Even though the facade, like the exterior out there, looks exactly like Tokyo's to a point.
So tell me your thoughts on those. And there are many, many more announcements, but those are some of the big ones that got a lot of attention, got a lot of reaction, good and bad. People, like Cars being a part of Frontierland, how does that really work? What does that do to that area? What are some of your reactions to?
Well, we were talking
the
about
things
this
announced.
before we started. And, I'll leave this up to you guys now. What do you guys think was the one announcement that did not get an insane amount of buzz in the Honda Center?
So the Honda Center was the one that was the Florida attractions, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right. They all these parks announcements were done at the Honda Center, yeah.
I would say Cars Land probably didn't get a huge reaction.
Okay. Ryan?
I'm looking through all of them now. I mean,
Cars
there's
Land or
those-
Monsters Inc.
Are we talking? Do we count the lounges, or is that something that? Or are we just talking about like
The lounges, I don't really count that because of how they
Okay.
did it at the presentation. They just kind of they named off a whole bunch of different things all at once, and it was like,
Yeah.
new test track 2025, new lounge at Spaceship Earth 2025, Pirates
Okay,
of the
all right.
Caribbean Lounge 2025.
Here we
If
go,
I
Ryan.
had-
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Here's my guess, just for you, Ryan. Matt, it is either Monsters Incorporated, Cars Land, Villains Land, or Encanto and Indiana Jones. Those are the ones that didn't get the biggest announcement. Now you go, Ryan, since I've
What
named
the-
all four of them. There's no way I can be wrong.
Oh, you think it's all four?
No. I was.
He's just
I was
naming
hedging
them
my
all so
bet.
he can be right.
All right,
Is
all
what
right,
it
I
is.
was hedging my
Let's
bet.
do it this way. Out of those four, Cody, that you just announced, one of them was
Okay, wait. What
not
were the
received
four?
well.
You
think
said
it's probably
monsters,
Cars Land.
cars.
Monsters, villains, and the Tropical Americas.
And
I
it's the
feel
one
like
that did not
Okay.
get the best reaction, right?
Did not
Really?
get the best reaction.
I think it's probably Cars.
Okay.
Okay, so of those four, I don't feel like it's the Tropicals because people really want to see Encanto and Indiana Jones, and I know that people are clamoring over the Villains Land and have been, so it can't be either of those. So it's either Monsters or Cars. I personally, from my personal thing, I think it's like Monsters. But the thing, people were asking for this ride forever ago, so I kind of feel like it's probably Cars. But the reason why I say Monsters is because of what I was saying before, where we're like, where is this going? And is it going to replace something else that we actually really care about? And that's kind of like my opinion on that. But that might be my personal feelings coming up. So why don't you tell us?
It was
it Cars?
Cars.
Okay.
Yeah. Was it
The-
because they
the-
announced it in Magic Kingdom?
No, I think it was just
But isn't Cars already over there? Like they have like a really small Cars section in the Magic Kingdom
That-
right now.
no. You're
no,
thinking
that's
Or is that Hollywood
Studios.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's just they announced it, and it was just the overall tone was just okay.
And so it wasn't
Th-
bad.
that's it.
They were just like we've already
but-
been at a Cars ride before. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the good thing that I'm excited for with this is that it seems to me that they're bringing in the same technology as Radiator Springs Racers, which is also test track, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be Radiator Springs Racers.
Mhm.
It's going to be a whole new story and everything. The design work that, if you've seen the concept art for this, it looks great. All of this stuff just looks amazing, like what they're doing and what they're pouring into this. I have the utmost faith in what they're doing. Now, Ryan was talking about Monsters. It looks great. It looks beautiful. Tell me where you're going to put it, because we're going to have someone chaining himself to Muppet Vision 3D if that's where
That
they're actually
person's
going to put it.
That's probably going to be me.
Yeah.
Because I love the Muppets. Like, and they're just like, they are not getting the love that they
get rid of
deserve.
Jim Henson's last project that he
That's
ever did in his
messed
life.
up, right?
Yeah.
Like that is.
Look.
And there's air conditioning in there. I can see in the air conditioning for 45 minutes.
I personally do not believe in a million years that Disney would ever do this. Is getting rid of Muppets. Let's take a look at the footprint.
Let's pop up Google. Let's I was gonna say, let's pop up Google Maps and look at this.
I think
there's not enough room.
Is.
Yeah, Cody, exactly what I've been saying is that it's got to be going at Launch Bay. Launch Bay has been a shadow of its former self since Galaxy's Edge opened in 2019.
Okay, this is so funny they're bringing this up because Rachel and I have been talking about how Launch Bay and that whole area is just real estate being waited to be used, and it's to the point where I forgot it was there, and it's now that you say that, I'm like, okay, that seems like more of an obvious answer.
We were over. If you think about it, it's there with the Disney Junior stuff also.
Right.
So you put it over there.
Nobody cares about Disney Junior.
Disney. But you have a whole bunch of kids going to Disney Junior, and then immediately from there they're able to hit Monsters Inc. land, and then from there they're able to go into Toy Story Land. Whereas if you put it on the other side of the park, you're going to Monsters Inc. land, then you have to walk through Galaxy's Edge, which I will say for some kids that's kind of that could be a scary area. The first time my youngest son went to Galaxy's Edge, that was kind of scary for him. It was,
especially when you see the stormtroopers walking around.
That was it. He was in a stroller, saw stormtroopers walking. He's like, I don't want to. Let's
getting back to that Disney Junior point that you mentioned, Cody, when does the last show happen of Disney Junior?
Yeah, isn't it 4 o'clock? 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock every night.
Yeah, that whole.
So
corner.
After 5 o'clock, you go through that animation courtyard right there, especially right now with Little Mermaid being down. They're bringing the show back by October, I think they said. I fully do not expect this area to still be a powerhouse at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because right now Launch Bay is closed after I think 7. Disney Junior is already done, and Little Mermaid is still not open. There's nothing going on over there. That is the perfect place to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So,
can I interrupt real quick before we move on from that? Because here's my thing. I don't want this attraction to go away because it's a classic for Hollywood studios. But what is going on with Aerosmith's coaster? Is that going to stick around or not? I hope it never goes anywhere. I hope so.
Here's my theory, and you go with me here. I've been on this kick for a while, making these connections between. I think at some point,
somebody with the bulletin, or not the bulletin board, the cork board with all the strings and stuff, that's what's going on in his head right now.
So there is a particular mega superstar who Disney throughout her career has tried to get, right? They always tried to get Taylor Swift.
A Disney I was gonna say, is it Taylor Swift, or are we is that?
Yeah. I think they always wanted her on Disney Channel. She was kind of Disney adjacent. I think with these when she did the Eras tour and with the movie, I think there could have been some discussion about when she went out and did the movie on her own, she had talked to studios, and then magically it ends up, where's it going to stream? It's going to stream on Disney Plus. My theory is maybe they were saying, hey, take this movie, you put it in theaters yourself, you make all the money off of it you want. Let's make the deal for Disney Plus so it's on our streaming service. And I think they're also using that, much like Ryan we talked about, which actually after that conversation about George Lucas and Captain EO, someone, a Disney history person, did tell me that was correct. They were trying to do that, get George Lucas involved in more projects to like kind of sweeten the pot for him to be in the parks.
Yeah.
I think they're doing the same thing with Taylor Swift. And I think
Probably.
at some point in the future, um, they could retheme that ride to Taylor Swift rather than Aerosmith. I mean, it's the same thing. You just switch out all the Aerosmith stuff to Taylor Swift.
It makes logical sense.
It
And
does.
I'm surprised that that's the first time I've ever heard that as just an idea. Like nobody even thinks about that would create a 6-hour line every day.
Well, I mean, there's nobody. There's Cody who sits at home and thinks about it like
So-
at least 16 hours of the day.
So
Hey,
I'm about
guilty
to
as
launch-
charged. And I'm surprised I didn't even come up with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, what?
I always kept
I'm
saying a
about to
Goofy
launch
movie
a-
would have been a great idea.
Oh
for
my god!
Aerosmith.
Oh my god! If that happened, I would
Give me
lose my
Powerline,
mind. That is
just-
like right. Like Goofy movie and Lilo Stitch are my favorite Disney movies. Like Powerline any day. I have so much Powerline merch. You can't see it because it's not facing this way. But oh my god, I would lose my mind. I would like if that got announced, you would just hear screaming from up here in Massachusetts down to wherever you are, Cody.
I'm going to launch a 17 special episode series on just my theories. Here are all my theories. I'll be like
I don't know.
Nostradamus
The
and
court
see which
board
one's
better
coming.
be in the background.
You need to actually probably send Bruce Vaughn, who's the head of Imagineering, an email saying, "Hey, here's a crazy idea: Aerosmith, Taylor Swift." Just putting it out there.
and then I get all the hate mail. All the hate mail. Maybe I'll just keep it to
From
myself.
who?
I'll edit that part
Can I
out
tell
of this.
you right? I'm gonna just let you know, as somebody who is going to the roller skating rinks all the time. All of them do like Taylor Swift nights, which I don't go to because that's what attracts the children. But like we go to the adult skates afterwards, and I've never seen so many people pour out of a building before, like at any of these locations, and it's like hundreds of screaming girls that, and I don't even understand it fully because like Taylor didn't Taylor Swift like start like 20, 30 years ago? And so like it's like little kids that are obsessed with her. She is like a multi-generational phenomenon where like Aerosmith is not. Aerosmith like died out like 20 years ago. And I hate like, I'm a rock and roll guy, so like I'm like that sucks to say, but like really like who's looking at Aerosmith since the year 2000, right? So I think you're onto something, Cody.
There's my theory. Before we get to our rapid questions, one thing that got a lot people are super excited about Villains Island. I think people
you
are
didn't
excited
even ask
about
us like what we were excited about. I was going to tell you that was that, but
I think people are excited about Indiana Jones and especially Encanto. To walk through a casita, that's awesome. But
yeah.
One
I
thing
want
that has gotten
I want that when they can get the X-Men property, but I want that with the X-Mansion.
Yeah, we talked about that. You saying you
did.
want an X-Mansion.
That would be a really good idea,
cool.
actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing that got a lot of negative attention was where Cars Land is going in Frontierland. Is it changing Frontierland? Are they going to change the name of Frontierland? I think that might be a little bit of a stretch, but
I don't think they're going to do
where
that.
they're putting it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on where they are putting it? And maybe also as part of that, when's the last time you've gone on Rivers of America? When's the last time you've gone on Tom Sawyer Island?
10 years.
I literally-
it feels like.
Oh man, I was on Tom Sawyer Island like the last time I was there, like a year ago.
I think
it's a
I've been
very
on Tom
peaceful
Sawyer-
place to go when you're getting like overstimulated. Like I'm gonna go over to Tom Sawyer's Island.
Absolutely.
There's nobody
Yeah.
over
And-
here.
And I hope that whatever they do with Cars, they try to create a less stimulating like section, if you will, of that area. But to me, just the Superior Rivers of America with Mark Twain and the Tom Sawyer Island is there.
I guess my question is, Disney is very good at creating like as you know, Matt, like just like these facades that don't ruin any pictures or anything. How would they be able to like that is such a huge chunk of the park to be like, yeah, we're gonna drain the river, tear out Tom Sawyer's Island, And like, you're not gonna see it. I'm like, except for the part where you walk around for that for
It's
20
going to be an
minutes.
eyesore for about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, right.
You
Like,
know
there is no way, even with like a giant fence, will it like. I mean, they did this with Epcot where they were trying to build like too many things at the same time recently, and I remember going through
Right.
like a hallway of fences, and I was like, this is like annoying. Like, this is like, I would rather look at the eyesore than do whatever the hell this is. But like, that's just such a big piece of that, and I agree with you. We can get rid of the river. It's sad, but like, I mean, what I'm thinking about in my head is like, well, we'll probably be able to finally cut across from like where Haunted Mansion is to Big Thunder
Yeah.
7
Instead of
walk,
going
like,
all the way around like
yeah.
a big U.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
What I'm
like,
also hopeful for is that we get better queue designs for Big Thunder Mountain
my God.
and Haunted Mansion, because
Right.
especially Haunted Mansion, that queue can get all over the place.
Well, they haven't
Most of the time.
updated it since they like built it, and they have like way more people going to that than there was initially. So
Here, what if the Rivers of America just becomes the track for, or at least a portion of it becomes the track for.
I
the
think you're onto
Cars
something. That
attraction,
actually,
because
that I'm looking at the Google Maps of that right now, and let's do a comparison of what it looks like over at Disneyland.
Well, but remember the back half of Rivers of America, like where you would be like towards the end of the riverboat, is going to be Villains.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Cars is only taking over like that front half section of.
Oh, see, I
Tom
thought
Sawyer
Cars was all of that, and
Well-
Villains was truly on the other side.
Cars
of Big
basically
Thunder.
starts would be like starting at the edge of the river that we see as
Okay.
guests right now, and then would go, I think, just a little bit past the entrances of Big Thunder and Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
But then past that is going to be Villains. And that's another reason why they're putting Cars there, is so that they have a more direct access for everyone to Villains. Because look, as soon as they said 2 years ago that they were talking about what's beyond Big Thunder, I said, say goodbye to Rivers of America, because there's no direct access back
People are
there
like-
without paving over Rivers of America.
So
But
Matt,
also, like, I these people crying about it. I'm like, there's a lot of Disney adults be like, I can't believe they're getting rid of this. I'm like, when did you go on it?
Yep.
Like, when I watch all these YouTube vloggers, and that's like getting onto the riverboat now, and there's like 6 people on there. Like, you know what I
Ryan,
mean? Like,
it's what we hear every single day. It's like, oh, you're taking this away from me. I'm never going to come back. Oh, but I'll give you my money in here.
Yeah.
Coming back.
I
don't
don't know if I've ever been on the Rivers of America. I can't remember. I definitely haven't been as an adult. My kids haven't been on Tom Sawyer. Last time I went on Tom Sawyer Island, I was there by myself in 2018.
Yeah.
I actually was mentioning a few months ago to my boys, like, hey, I think you would like Tom Sawyer Island. So hopefully we can get there and they can experience it one time. But it's also like, I mean, it's cool that it's an island.
I was going to say, you probably got about 4
but it's
months
also
before they start closing it down.
Yeah, it's also like you got to get on a boat, you got to take over there, like, and when you go with younger kids, the definition of a successful trip is how much you get to do. It's not necessarily let's go and let's like detach from the rest of the park for a while. I can understand why they are getting rid of that area. Yes, nostalgia.
Well, the kids used to go there in the 80s, but they're not doing that now.
Yeah.
Like, because there's more stuff at Magic Kingdom for kids to go and do, and families in general. There's more attractions than there were when they
it's
opened.
a simple industrial engineering idea here. 1,000 people an hour, let's say, go to Tom Sawyer Island, right? And that's on maybe like a busy day, if anything. When they add this Cars thing in and they add the villain stuff in, that's probably going to get like 10,000 people over there an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just going to kind of create this movement over to the west side of the park now, and hopefully also take pressure off of Fantasyland and Tron now too with this. And in turn, you can bring more people into the park, hopefully, because you're spreading these people out a little bit more. You're giving more space. Me and my friends were talking about this. We said, this is all fun, like adding more capacity to the Magic Kingdom. We've got to do something about the transportation first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because monorail and ferry boat from the Transportation Ticket Center, that's it. That's all we've got. And you want to add more people to the park? We can't do this. We need to have another mode of transportation to get you to and from the Ticket and Transportation Center. Because
you know what it's going to be?
It's probably going to be the Skyliner.
It's the Skyliner. I am an advocate for putting the Skyliner
I'm
to
all for it
every
too.
single park. I absolutely
They can get
love
thousands upon
the
thousands
Skyliner.
of people an hour on that.
Yeah,
And
I would.
If it
love
works,
that.
let's do it. But you've got to get started on that now. Because if you don't have that by the time Villains at least opens, let alone even maybe Cars, can you imagine after Fireworks trying to get out of the Magic Kingdom now? It's going to be insane.
Here's a question about Villains. An observation first. Have either of you ever read Kingdom Keepers?
Yes.
You know, okay. So the latest Kingdom Keepers series, I would love to talk to Ridley Pearson about this. He's the author of Kingdom Keepers again. The latest series is called Inheritance, and it's about the kids of the Kingdom Keepers. Those books are about, like, the first book ends saying the Disney president, they don't call him the CEO, the Disney president has made this decision to add a Villains Land into all of the parks around the world. And the problem is, like, that is giving the villains, like, kind of access to all the parks where then they can kind of try to take over the parks like they did in the first series of books. I think it's funny now, and I would like to ask Ridley again, like, hey, now there actually is going to be a Villains Land in one of the parks. Like, how does that influence your story? Are you going to write more stories off of this? But the question I had, Matt, for you, because I had read that Villains Land would have made more sense off of Fantasyland, and it would. However, or it seems like it would. But structurally, they cannot do that because behind New Fantasyland is, like, the entrance to the Utilidors, is Disney University back there. Like, there's a
Disney
lot of
University is
structure
much
back
further.
there, right?
It's about
But
like
there's
half a
like
mile
cast
away.
member structures back there, right?
Right. That's where, like, the Disney buses will come in to drop off the cast members coming from the parking lot to go down into the Utilidors to go to work. Who's to say they can't? You know, we always say Disney maybe wouldn't do something like, you know, would they spend the money to do this? Who's to say they wouldn't? Because there is a way that we could probably like connect somehow. You'd have to do really creative engineering, but, you know, Fantasyland is going to be right up against Haunted Mansion, which then is kind of right up against Villains. Who's to say once they rework the queue and everything with Haunted Mansion, can they kind of create a flow over to there? You never know.
Here's another theory, because I think they will. They have to. It's got to be like Galaxy's Edge has 2 entrances. Toy Story Land has 2 entrances. I think that entrance between New Fantasyland and Villains Land could be Ichabod Crane. It could be the Ride of the Headless Horseman, that type of theming, where it gets darker and darker and darker, you know.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Maybe they could bring back Mr. Toad's Wild Ride then with that too.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
So are we gonna play the game of, like, what attractions we can bring back? Wait, hold on. Before we wrap on that, I wanted to touch on something. My God, hold on. My brain just farted so bad because you guys were talking about this. Like, oh, I'll let them finish this and then I'll come back. Okay, so we didn't really talk about this, but one of the things that Disney World has been absolutely lacking and has been a huge mistake on their part was when they got rid of their nighttime parade. That was like, the one that Disneyland still has with like the cheesy 80s music. And when they were like, oh, we're getting rid of it, I was like, they better replace it. And they didn't. Like 4 or 5 years went by, like nothing happened, because like that was a big star attraction. But they are doing that now. They're doing like that whole new nighttime parade. And I think that's going to be very exciting. That's it. I just wanted to mention it because I think that's really important. Like to anybody else, that's like,
and a thing that we've been talking about, at least down here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's that like?
Once this nighttime parade comes in, that's going to be all great. What about all these construction walls that are going to be in front of Rivers of America, where the parade route is? How are we doing this? It's going to be interesting. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Well, but it will be nice to see an updated like nighttime parade. I mean, they're like showing Encanto and stuff. I'm like, that's really cool that we'll be able to see that.
I'm interested to hear the music.
So
yeah, me too.
Whenever I think of parades and nighttime parades, I saw the original Main Street Electrical Parade. I always think of my grandmother sitting for 3 hours.
The one that came back in the 90s, or the one that came back in the 2000s, or the one that came back in 2015.
I always think of my grandmother.
It's a joke because it's the parade that never dies.
So she would sit for 3 hours and save places for that parade. Whereas now, like whenever there's a parade going on, that's when we go ride rides. Because like I guess I just haven't. Maybe my boys don't really know they have mini parades, and if they did, they would want to see those. But that's like prime ride time for me. So hey, I'm all for it as well.
No, I'm with you on that.
I'll see it. I'll like it. It'll serve double purposes
and I think
for
that's also being the thing for Festival of Fantasy right now, is that Festival of Fantasy still pulls in the crowds, but you take a look, those wait times are still commanding pretty high at parade time, when that was always the tip that everyone would give you back in the day, was go and ride any attraction for that matter while the parade is going on, and you'll have less of a wait. Not necessarily.
Yeah,
pretty much only works for sure during the fireworks at this point. So
not even the fireworks too, I've noticed lately.
I think it depends on the ride. It's like I run in, like Splash Mountain.
You'd still try and get on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train during the fireworks. Good luck.
No, but like the others, like Haunted Mansion, Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, I've been able to like run on and be like, I was able to marathon that because the fireworks are going on. So, but
before we do rapid questions, anything that we missed that you want to mention quick?
Who, me or Matt? Because I feel like Matt's the one who was there and saw everything.
I was going to say, let me pull through my notes.
Like we're looking at notes that are like coming off the internet, but like he's already been able to point out stuff that we didn't know happened.
No, I mean,
we
basically
should have had Matt send us his notes, so then we could have just.
I just need to know.
I could have just sent you the press release that I'm literally reading.
See, I'm just like, I just need to know if I'm tying myself to Muppet 3D Vision or not.
And I'll be right there with you, Ryan. I'll be right there.
I think there'll be a lot of people doing it. It's got to be launch bay.
I've been literally saying it. I think if they were to announce it, they're going to have a huge fight, I think, with Brian and Lisa Henson, who are the kids of Jim. Because they will go up in arms about this.
Yeah.
If that's true.
I think that's
again, I don't think it's true. You see how big this roller coaster is going to be, how big the show building, how big the land is kind of going to be. They can't fit that in the Muppets courtyard.
No, you really can't. But launch bay is perfect, and like I just forgot it existed because nobody goes over there. We forgot it existed because it's kind of terrible.
If they were to do it at launch bay, the iconic thing that you're getting rid of is the building that's kind of attached behind launch bay that's called feature animation. That is literally where they created Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, Brother Bear way back in the day. But now they just use it as office space, and I'm like, okay, so move the offices somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's it.
I know. I think the other comment I was going to add is that I remember them talking about that villains section for a while, and we're like, is this real or is it not? But
I remember villains being talked about since I was little.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
it's like, is
literally
it
going
actually
on, like,
happening?
25 years.
Well, but see, now my question is like, was this like a fast response from Disney to be like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing villains, because Universal came out of nowhere and they're like, we are creating a whole monsters horror area. And then Disney's like, we're definitely doing Disney villains. That's definitely happening. And we've been working on it this whole time. And I'm like, have you
Well,
though?
if you do remember 2 years ago when they were
Yeah.
trying to claim What's Beyond Big Thunder, they were talking about villains.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, they've been
Um,
talking about villains for years, and they did
but
say
I
that at the
think
time. But this is like the
I
first
personally
official
believe,
capacity that like it's definitely
right.
going to be
I
produced.
personally
So,
believe ever since Universal came out and announced Dark Universe fully, like showing, this is the roller coaster that we're building.
Yeah.
These are the shops. This is the land. Oh, by the way, this is the crazy e-ticket ride that's going to literally probably make you scared beyond belief because of how lifelike these animatronics are. I think that was the wake-up call to Disney saying, crap, we got to build a villain's land now.
well, yeah, and it's not even just that. It's that Universal is like, by the way, we're adding a third park, and Disney's like, we are not doing that, so we have to do something to compete with this. And I mean, like, if you look at like what we're competing with, like Disney versus Universal, there's a lot of parallels going on. So
right, because that was the biggest discussion amongst cast members. I can say is that we were all kind of, we weren't fearful, but we were, again, cautiously optimistic of what's going to happen when, because we said after Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened, there was nothing going on. There was the talk about Tropical Americas and the Beyond Big Thunder, but we said we still don't know when that's going to happen. And the fact that they finally announced it at the expo last weekend, it just solidified, okay, now you're finally going in on this. But until I see some dirt moving from the ground, then I'll safely say, okay, now I can get a little bit more excited for this. Right. Thankfully, for next year, we've got a couple of good things that will help entice people to come to the park, other than Universal. Yeah. But it's still not enough. And I think what Disney's trying to do is say, hey, don't forget about us. We'll have this really cool stuff in just a couple of years for you.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, rapid questions. First one, we'll go right to left. So Ryan, that means you're first now.
That's hilarious.
On
I'm
my
not
screen.
On the right. I'm on the far
left. I was
left.
gonna say he's bottom down.
Matt's on the bottom.
Favorite announcement from anything, could be from entertainment, could be from parks. Favorite announcement, or it could be from both.
Well, no, I don't feel like there was any like announcement media wise that was like, oh wow, like I mean, like yeah, I saw Lilo and Stitch is getting their live action movie, and I'm just glad that like he doesn't look crazy, because that was like a concern for a while, is what the live action version will look like. But luckily he just looks
if
exactly
he's gonna
the
look
same,
like
so
if he's gonna look like ugly Sonic.
As the Japanese,
I was gonna say
kawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So for me, I'm always more interested in what's going on in the parks. The villains thing is really cool. I don't know. I for me, the most exciting thing is probably like knowing that it's actually happening, and that and I'm very excited about some of the stuff that's happening. Like I think that Lion King Flume ride sounds epic, and I'm probably gonna have to go leave the country to go do that. But yeah, that and Encanto, I think this like redesign of Animal Kingdom is long overdue, and I'm very excited to see that like there's actual progress happening with that, and it's going to be really cool to see. Like even Indiana Jones, which at the time I'm like, do I really want Dinosaur to be replaced by that? And it's like, and see what they're going to do. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. It's going to be kind of like the same stuff, but like Indiana Jones. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
How about you, Matt? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gone.
I would say parks wise, I'm kind of with Ryan there, just seeing this stuff getting started. Because I'm excited for all of this. Again, I am excited for Cars coming to the Magic Kingdom. I am excited for Monsters. Just don't you touch Muppet Vision. I'm excited for this stuff going into Disneyland. It's just, let me see you doing it. Especially like Tropical Americas. Like they've said 2027 is when that's supposed to open. I'm like, really? You want to give a year this early on this when you haven't even really started on it? So again, cautiously optimistic about it.
As for movies wise, same. I'm excited for that Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorite movies. I'm excited for Incredibles 3, especially since Brad Bird is coming back for it. I'm also excited as the kid that grew up with this in the early 2000s, Freakier Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan.
We didn't even touch on that. I can't believe that's happening. That's like
but
wild,
I'm so
right?
excited for it.
Oh, same. I'm like, put Jamie Lee Curtis in anything. I'm down. I'm there.
What about my favorite is I like the Tropical Americas because of Indiana Jones and Encanto.
Right.
I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan.
Were we recording when Cody was like, I'm gonna ask you the rapid fire questions, but here are my answers, and we're like, stop. Yeah. I can't remember if that was before we started the show or after. So
I think it was before.
Okay.
Here's the interesting thing about Indiana Jones. I love the Indiana Jones character. I really don't watch. I don't watch the Indiana Jones movies on repeat. Which is just it's fascinating to me. I watch much more Marvel than I do I haven't sat down and watched the Indiana Jones
than there's
movie all the way
Indiana
through.
Jones. There's so much Marvel content that I'm I don't know, drowning in it right now. You know what I mean? I can't keep up.
But I'm glad that they're toning back on that too.
Thank God.
Take a look at this year with Marvel. We've gotten Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have the
Echo.
Agatha series. Was Echo this year?
Echo came out, I think January.
It came out after Loki. So
I didn't even watch it.
And
it's on my queue. I just finished watching. I finally watched Loki season 2, Cody. I did that right before Wolverine and Deadpool.
You can't push out content that much. It's got to be quality over quantity.
Right.
And I'm really excited for Agatha. I think that'll be really, really cool.
I think we're all kind of on that page. So
the next one, here's an announcement that you were looking forward to, but you did not get. So something you were wanting to happen, either in parks, movies, both.
In my head, or that there had been a rumor about, or both.
That you thought actually could happen, not just blue sky, hey, this would be amazing if this happened. Something you actually thought, hey, I think this might happen. There's been a lot of rumor about this. And it didn't happen. What was that for you two?
I'll let Matt go first because I have to kind of brainstorm.
I was gonna say you were gonna take mine anyway because we talked about this earlier.
I mean,
I'll let you have this one, Ryan. But for me, I was hoping that we would hear whatever was going to go on with the Wonders of Life Pavilion at Epcot. We heard it was going to be the Play Pavilion, and then they kind of scrapped that idea. Although I found it interesting. I was riding monorail the other Epcot over there, and on the narration they talk about the Play Pavilion. So I'm like, is that still a thing? I don't know.
Is it a thing, or do they need to re-record something?
I think they need to re-record something. That's probably it.
I guess what's funny is I don't think there's anything that I'm waiting for so much as I have ideas and I think they're good ideas, like Matt talking about turning Rock and Roller Coaster to Powerline. I do feel like we are really close to some sort of goofy movie comeback from the marketing that they've been doing for the past 5 years. I'm not actively waiting for them to announce we're gonna have a Powerline show, but also
there's a documentary that's coming out.
Yeah, I do know about that,
which I'm very, very excited for. They had a panel about that over the weekend, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't get to go because I had to go over for the studios presentation, obviously. Right. But I'm very optimistic about
that's good
seeing what comes out with that.
Yeah.
But no, Ryan, I thought you were going to mention Figment.
No, that's I'm giving that to Cody. I was going to say, if anything, I would like to have heard. This is just an ongoing thing with me because after Wolverine and Deadpool, I'm just what is going on with the X-Men and the Marvel properties? Because I saw that movie and I was like, this didn't resolve anything. In fact, it made it worse because Matt, you don't know this from my podcast, but if you listen to it, my co-host Maddie and I have been doing this show for 8 years now, and one of our things is that the Fox film movies of adaptations of the X-Men are largely terrible and awful and don't understand what the metaphor is even about. They're not well made. The stories are bad. They get all these great actors. They don't do anything with them. And so like the Wolverine and Deadpool movie came out, and I was like, it was kind of like a funeral for that. But then also it was kind of like, but also they're still all around. And I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, because at this point everything they're doing with the MCU is just kind of like making it hard to follow, number one. And like, is 616 gonna stay that? Is it gonna hit a multiverse thing? Like, how are they including mutants? I was kind of hoping we'd hear like anything, but largely they just didn't talk about anything happening with the MCU at all, and that is not promising to me because I feel like they are over there. I feel like they don't know what they're doing, and I was kind of hoping that D23 would be like, okay, we have an announcement, even if it wasn't about X-Men, just like something. But they're doing all these. We got Fantastic Four and like Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, and like I'm just like, what is going on over there? like I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch, but like I was kind of hoping like we'd get some sort of spark of promise that they knew what they're doing, but instead they then changed the entire timelines because they didn't want to do Kane anymore, which is crazy because I'm like, they could have just cast somebody else and said it was a variant, and I'm just like, we got nothing. I just feel like genuinely they don't know what's happening. It doesn't make me feel super confident that they know what's going to happen over there. That's I guess if to answer your question.
I think they're trying to make sure that they don't mess it up.
Yeah, well, they've already done that, so
they messed up on a couple of things.
Yeah, right. But attraction-wise, I don't have anything that like I'm like, oh, just don't tear down Muppet 3D Vision. That's it.
Yeah.
This was mine that I told you to before, so you wouldn't take. Mine was Figment. I wanted an announcement on what was happening with Figment in the parks, and then the long rumored movie that has been in development. What's going to happen with that? I think
I see. I also wanted to say that, but I'm letting Cody have that because he's dressed in like Figment colors right now. So it's
thank you.
He's purple. He's more purple, but there's a little pink going on. So
last one.
No, I completely forgot about the movie for a second. I wonder if that still is in development.
I haven't heard that it's not. So usually you hear when something has been scrapped, but I don't know. And real quick, this actually is the shirt I wear when I cosplay as Figment for class. I have a purple jacket.
Yeah.
So the jacket is the purple. Last one. Josh Tomorrow said, "This is not blue sky. These things are happening. We know Epic Universe is opening next year, right? 2025.
Yep. Couple more months.
Of the parks announcements, which one do you realistically think of these major parks announcements is the first to open?
Are you talking about the attractions?
Yeah, like which realistically do you think is the first addition that we're going to see? I mean, like the Play Pavilion's a great example. Spaceship Earth, they were going to retheme or they were going to renovate, and they had
I think I would say Tropical Americas.
Yeah,
I think Tropical Americas will be first, especially since they kind of gave us a timeline of 2027.
Well, they have a place to put it right now. They're just moving stuff out of the way, essentially.
Well, yes and no.
You know what I mean? Well,
I think they have to do more with Encanto, and probably a little bit less with Indiana Jones.
That's what I mean. It's that like they already have a space for Indiana Jones. They have a building they can get out and use, and
they don't need to build up the building like they're doing with Encanto. Right,
and they're gonna have to do a bunch of stuff with like Encanto, but that's still just taking out like a huge space where the Dino Land is. That once when you remove those rides, it's literally just a big empty build space. Whereas you look at Magic Kingdom, you're like, okay, we're gonna build these parks here, and we have to take out a river and an island, like if that's in the middle of the park. I think
and probably shut down the railroad again too.
Right. So like you're looking at stuff like that. And then, but I can also see like if this Monsters Inc. thing is going over where the launch bay is, I'm like that one may not take that long either because like there's nothing happening over there. Like like those two corners
you're still talking about demoing a building, creating the foundation, building up. I would say it's still 3 years. If anything,
but that's still not as long as Magic Kingdom. This Magic Kingdom one is like that's gonna be crazy long. But then again, Galaxy's Edge was built way faster than I thought it would, and it's huge. you know. So I don't know. I
But
mean,
let's also
you're
take
there,
a look
Matt.
at how quickly Universal has built Epic Universe.
I mean,
Universal built Epic Universe faster than it took them to transform Epcot.
yeah, right. It's like it's crazy. So I don't know.
So
Well,
that's
it's
why
different.
I'm.
Okay,
That's why, again,
but
I'm hopeful that with the way what they're coming out with from the expo is that they have this sense of urgency. Like
yeah.
they're not going to mess around this time. They're going to charge on through, and they may actually get Tropical Americas open by 2027.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
You're saying like we have a sense of urgency, and I'm just looking at the picture behind Cody of Mickey just being like, "Oh, I'm on my way!" Like really, like slowly, does not care how long it takes. Like,
hey, we'll get it open eventually, pal.
You know what's really funny about Mickey Mouse is that like Mickey Mouse is like this character who in Disney universe like has like a bunch of like reality altering powers, but like can't affect our world. So it's like very funny. It's like, hey Mickey, can you like make this go faster? He's like, I lost all my magical powers this week. Like, you know, I don't know. Anyway.
So both of you, thanks for doing this. Thanks for the recap.
I really appreciate Matt's perspective from inside the park, because that's something I don't normally get to hear unless my friend who works in costuming talks to me about it. But even still, like that's a different department from what you're dealing with, which is like right there on these attractions that they're going to be building that you're going to have to operate. So,
right.
Yeah. So you actually have to make it happen, Matt. So thanks. We get to enjoy. You're the one who has to make it
the
happen.
expert here.
We make the
So-
magic.
Matt, where's the best place for people to follow you again?
You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, X, excuse me, Instagram as
That's
well.
Twitter.
Yeah, I'll always call it Twitter.
Yeah.
DarthVader 92 on YouTube. Follow me over there. I always say if you find me on Facebook, give me a friend request, but hopefully you got a good couple of people that I'm already friends with, because if I don't see any friends that you're mutual friends or whatever, I'm not going to accept. Sorry.
Okay. Ryan, how about you?
Sorry, my mic was off. You can find me not at Ryan Pagella anymore. I changed my handle. It's now on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. It's either under Roller Ryan or Roller Ryan Skate. That's the best way to follow me. You can find me on my podcast, The Mutant Ages, which is about the X-Men. And if you want to hear me talk about career coding in Disney, that's Love is an Open Door. I do have a YouTube channel, Ryan's Adventure Life, that's about traveling to different theme parks, and Disney is one of them. It's been on hiatus for the past 2 months. I don't know if it's ever coming back. Like, you know, life is a thing. I'm still going to the parks and like posting about it on my social media, but I'm not, like, it takes a lot of time, man, to like go and procure footage and then edit footage and then like put it out. And it takes a lot of time. I kind of just want to be present and enjoy being at Disney and not having to like capture.
What do you think I deal with on a regular basis here?
A lot of this.
Oh God. And I try and limit that. You know, that's why I never got into vlogging.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. Cody's calling it.
Hey, thanks a lot for doing this. You guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, Cody.